I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here we are. My wife Jessica and I had been together for about 10 years, married for 6. We have a son, Tyler, who's all about football, or at least he was. Jessica always seemed a bit distant lately, like she had her own secret world. Nothing obvious, just small things. She started working late more often, coming home with that fake smile she used when she was hiding something. I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than usual, and she'd get defensive if I tried to look at her screen. I figured it was just work stress, or maybe she was talking to some girlfriends. I didn't want to think the worst, but I could feel something was off, like a gnawing suspicion I couldn't shake. Things got weird when Tyler's football season started. Jessica was always encouraging, cheering him on at practice, talking about how proud she was. But I started noticing little things. She'd leave the house in a rush after practice, claiming she was going to her sister. But then I'd find her phone lit up with texts from Coach Miller, the assistant coach, a guy named Ryan. The texts weren't just about football. They had a weird, flirty vibe. I'd see her laughing at her phone, sometimes hiding it when I was near. I'd catch her looking at her phone in a way that made my stomach turn, like she was hiding something. But then she'd give me that irritating smirk and brush it off. One day, I decided to follow her after she left for one of those sisters' houses dinners. I waited till she was gone, then I took her phone, thinking maybe I'd find something. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just wanted some peace of mind. I started scrolling through her messages, and what I found made my blood run cold. There were texts from Ryan Miller, not about football, but about their little secret, and how they couldn't keep their hands off each other. The messages were explicit, describing what they did in the equipment room after practice, how Jessica said she needed it so bad, and Ryan was more than happy to oblige. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, Jessica, cheating on me, with the guy responsible for Tyler's football team in the equipment room after practice. And the worst part, they weren't even trying to hide it anymore. It was right there in black and white. I felt this mixture of shock and anger I've never experienced before. I remember holding her phone, trembling, trying to process what I just saw. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut, like everything I believed about her was a lie. I'd always trusted her, always thought we had a good relationship, and now I was faced with the truth. She was cheating on me, and she didn't even seem to care. It wasn't just a fluke or a mistake. She was actively sneaking around, lying to my face, and sneaking behind my back with a guy who I thought was just a coach. It was an earth-shattering moment that changed everything. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, or if I could even look her in the eyes after this. I waited a couple of hours before I finally decided I couldn't just pretend I didn't know. I wanted to talk to her face to face, to hear her lie or admit it, whatever she was going to do. But I already knew what I had seen. The proof was right there in her phone, burned into my mind. When she got home, she was her usual bitchy self, throwing around her attitude, acting like she was the victim. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she was trying to mask it with her typical sharp tongue. I took a deep breath and I asked her straight up, "Who's Ryan Miller, Jessica? And what the hell have you been doing with him in the equipment room after practice?" Her eyes widened for a split second, then she burst into a nasty laugh. "Oh, you're overreacting like always," she said, smirking. "It's just a dumb joke. You're so paranoid, it's embarrassing. Ryan and I are just friends. You think I'd do something so stupid? Honestly, you're pathetic sometimes." I felt my jaw tighten. Her denial was so predictable, so typical of her when she got caught. I looked at her, feeling a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. "Don't lie to me, Jessica. I saw the messages. I saw what you said about needing Ryan to fix your problems, how you wanted him to take care of you after practice. How long has this been going on? How many times have you been in that equipment room with him?" Her face twitched and she suddenly looked angry. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. We're just talking, okay? God, you're so insecure. I don't know why I married someone so paranoid. Maybe I should have just kept it to myself. You're not worth the trouble." That hit me hard. Her words, her attitude, she was so dismissive, so indifferent. It was like she didn't even care that she'd been caught, that she'd betrayed everything we had. I couldn't believe how cold she was being, how she was trying to turn the tables and make me sound crazy. but I knew the truth and I wasn't going to let her brush it off. I told her I wanted her to leave to get out of my house, that I needed time to think. She rolled her eyes and told me I was overreacting again, that I was making a scene. But I did care. I wanted her gone and I wanted her to know how much she'd hurt me. After she left, I sat alone in the dark trying to process what just happened. I kept thinking about our son, Tyler, and how all this was going to affect him. I felt sick. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover it. I realized I'd never felt so humiliated, so useless. How could I have missed all the signs? How long had she been lying? I was furious at myself for trusting her, for thinking she was the woman I married. But more than anything, I was furious at her for doing this to us, for throwing away years of marriage, for cheating with our son's coach, and then lying about it like it was nothing. It was a gut punch I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from. The days after she left felt like a haze. I'd wake up in the morning, the house silent except for Tyler's muffled voice in the next room, and I'd just sit there, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of what had happened. The betrayal cut deep. I kept replaying her words, her dismissive attitude, and those damn messages from Ryan. I wondered how I missed the signs, the late nights, the secretive texts, the way she'd suddenly become so cold and bitchy toward me. Honestly, I'd been blind. Or maybe I just hoped she was too busy to notice me anymore. Either way, I wasn't prepared for this level of betrayal. I decided I needed to do something more than just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I started digging into Ryan Miller's background. I wanted to know if this was just a fling or something more serious. It was disgusting to think she'd been hooking up with our son's coach, someone we both trusted, someone who was supposed to be a mentor to Tyler. I found out that Ryan was 29, married with 2 kids and a bit of a womanizer. That made the whole thing worse. She wasn't just cheating, she was sleeping with a married man, someone with a family of his own. That realization made my stomach turn. I felt like I was losing my mind, knowing my wife was out there, in the same town, probably lying to her own husband, just like she lied to me. I also started thinking about how I could retaliate. Not just confront her, but really hurt her where it counted, make her feel the pain of betrayal, the same way I did. I wasn't the kind of guy to go around seeking revenge, but this was different. I felt like I needed to do something, anything, to even the score. I came up with a plan. I was going to expose her, not just to her family or friends, but to everyone she knew. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be humiliated, to have her reputation destroyed. The idea took root in my mind, and I felt a strange mixture of guilt and resolve. She had betrayed me in the worst way, so I figured I was entitled. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I started collecting more evidence, screenshots of the texts, photos if I could get any, anything that proved she was having an affair with Ryan. I knew I couldn't just confront her again, not now, not without more proof. I had to be sure. Meanwhile, the emptiness of the house was crushing. I'd sit on the couch, staring at the empty spot where she used to sit, the scent of her perfume lingering even after she'd gone. I wondered how much longer I could keep pretending I was okay. A part of me wanted to break down, scream, cry, but I held it in. I was too angry for tears. One night, I stayed up late and pulled out her laptop, trying to find more dirt. It was risky, but I needed to know if she'd slipped up in ways I hadn't seen yet. And that's when I found something even more shocking. A series of emails from Ryan talking about meeting her again, for a real session, as he put it, in some hotel room. She was planning to cheat on me again and she didn't even care. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to do something, and I had to do it fast. The betrayal was worse than I thought. It wasn't just a one-time mistake, but something she was actively planning to keep doing. That's when I started plotting my next move, knowing I had to confront her, or maybe, just maybe, do something more drastic. I wasn't sure yet. All I knew was my patience was running out and I was running out of options. The night I finally decided to confront Jessica again, I was filled with a strange calm, mixed with intense anger. I knew I couldn't just yell at her, not anymore. I needed to get her to admit everything, to break her down and make her see how deeply she'd screwed up. I waited until she was supposed to be asleep, but I already knew she was. Her phone was buzzing on the bedside table, lit up with texts from Ryan. I couldn't resist. I grabbed her phone quietly, scrolling through the messages one last time just to confirm what I already knew. She was planning to meet him again, probably that very night. I read her explicit plans, how she wanted to feel alive again, how Ryan was the only one who could make her forget everything, and how she kept calling him her secret love. It was sickening, honestly. I felt like my heart had been ripped out. I looked at her sleeping peacefully, pretending to be innocent. I wondered how she could lie so effortlessly, how she could look me in the eyes and still keep up the act. I knew I had to do something now, so I woke her up gently, just enough to get her to listen. Her eyes fluttered open and I looked straight at her, holding her phone in my hand. "Jessica," I said quietly but firmly, "I know everything. The messages, the plans, the whole damn affair. Do you want to tell me what this is all about?" Her face immediately twisted into that familiar bitchy expression and she sat up quickly. "You're overreacting as usual," she spat. "It's just a stupid crush. You're so insecure, it's pathetic. Ryan's just a friend, you're seeing things like always. You're making a mountain out of a molehill as you do with everything." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "No, Jessica, this isn't a crush. It's a full-blown affair. I saw the messages. I saw what you've been doing in the equipment room with Ryan after Tyler's practice. How many times? How long has this been going on?" Her lips curled into a sneer. "You think I'd actually cheat on you? Don't be so stupid. You're just jealous because I don't want a boring life with a guy who doesn't give me any excitement anymore." That was her usual line. She always said I was too dull, too controlling, that I didn't give her what she needed. But I knew the truth now. She just wanted to get her kicks. I told her to pack her things and leave. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore, not after what I'd found out. She argued, of course. She said I was overreacting, that I was crazy, that I was making her life hell. But I didn't care. I wanted her gone. I wanted her to feel what I felt: betrayed, humiliated, used. She threw a fit, called me crazy and jealous, and dragged her feet, but I wasn't going to let her stay. I told her if she didn't leave now, I'd call the cops and have her forcibly removed. That shut her up, at least temporarily. While she packed her bags, I felt this strange emptiness settle over me. Part of me wanted to scream, to break things, to hurt her back, but I held myself together. I knew I was doing what I had to do, even if it felt like my world was crumbling. Watching her go was like watching my entire life slip away. It was not just about the betrayal. It was about trust, respect, everything I thought we had. I kept thinking about Tyler, about how I'd have to explain this mess to him someday, and how I'd have to pick up the pieces of a life I thought was perfect but clearly was. The pain was deep, but I told myself I'd survive somehow. The house felt emptier than ever once Jessica was gone. I kept staring at the empty space where she used to sit, feeling sick to my stomach. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her sneers, the way she dismissed everything I said. I'd always thought we had a good, stable life. Sure, we had arguments, but I believed we were solid. Now I knew the truth. She was capable of lying, cheating, and sneaking around behind my back. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I felt was this intense gnawing pain that wouldn't go away. The first thing I did after she left was start calling around to find a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, what I could do to protect myself and Tyler. I knew I was going to divorce her. I couldn't see any way back from this. Trust was shattered. Every time I thought about her in that equipment room with Ryan, I felt rage bubbling up. I'd also started thinking about how to handle the fallout with Tyler. How do I tell a 10-year-old kid that his mom cheated on his coach? How do I explain the woman he looked up to was capable of something so horrible? Meanwhile, I also started looking for ways to hurt her back. Not physically, I'm not that kind of guy, but emotionally. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling. I knew I couldn't just confront her again, not without more proof. So I decided to pick my moment carefully. I wanted her to see what she lost. I wanted her to realize she couldn't just lie and cheat her way back into my life. I started gathering more evidence of her ongoing plans to meet Ryan again, including more explicit messages and emails. I figured if I could make her realize I wasn't just some fool who got played, Maybe she'd understand how badly she'd messed up. One night, I managed to sneak into her emails, hoping to find something she hadn't deleted. And I did. There was a recent email from Ryan talking about the next session and how Jessica said she needed to feel alive again, just like she'd told me was about needing a break or some dumb excuse. She was planning to meet him again, apparently that very night in some hotel. That was the final straw. I knew I had to act now. I couldn't let her keep doing this, not just for myself but for Tyler too. I wanted her to see that her lies had consequences. I wanted her to feel the shattering of everything she'd built. The betrayal had become personal, and I was tired of hiding my pain. So I called a friend, someone I knew who was a divorce lawyer, and I explained everything. I wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row before I did anything drastic. I knew I had to be strategic. I wanted her to think she'd gotten away with it, but I also knew I had to expose her fully so she couldn't lie her way out of it. I spent the next few days planning my next move, feeling like I was walking a tightrope, angry, hurt, but determined to take control of what was left of my life. I kept asking myself, how did I let it get this far? How did the woman I trusted so completely turn into a stranger? And more importantly, how do I fix this mess, or at least save what I can for Tyler's sake? The night I finally confronted her again, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had all the evidence laid out, screenshots, emails, her plans to meet Ryan once more, and I was determined to make her see that I wasn't just some fool she could lie to anymore. I waited until she was supposed to be out, but really I wanted her home so I could catch her in the act if she tried to sneak out. When she arrived, she looked annoyed, like she'd been caught in her little world of lies again. I was calm on the outside, but inside I was boiling with everything I hadn't said. I sat her down in the living room, put her phone on the table, and slowly laid out everything I had discovered. Her eyes widened, then immediately turned into that familiar sneer. Her first instinct was denial. "You're crazy," she said. "This is all a misunderstanding." She insisted, even as I read her the texts, the emails, the plans for her to meet him in that hotel. She tried to spin stories to convince me that I was paranoid, that I was making it all up, that I was just jealous or insecure. But I didn't let her. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, that I was done pretending. Her reaction was classic. She started screaming, calling me an idiot, saying I was ruining everything. I told her to get out, that I wanted her to leave and never come back. She argued, threw her bag, stomped around like she was the victim. She told me I was crazy for suspecting her, that Ryan was just helping Tyler with his football, that I was overreacting, as if I didn't already have the proof in my hands. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I'd take her to court if I had to, and that I was done with her lies. She looked at me like I was the enemy, like I was the one who was ruining our family, but I didn't care anymore. I finally saw her for what she was: selfish, manipulative, and deeply unfaithful. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I'd uncovered the truth. Sadness because I knew our marriage was broken beyond repair. That night, she packed her things and left for good. I watched her drive away, feeling the weight of everything she'd done, knowing I'd never trust her again. In the days that followed, I focused on my son. I explained to Tyler that sometimes adults make mistakes, but what mattered was that we stayed honest and true. I promised him I'd be there for him no matter what, and I would do everything I could to give him a better life. I realized that betrayal teaches you many things: about trust, about pain, but also about resilience. I learned that some people are capable of betraying everything you stand for, but that doesn't mean you have to let their choices define you. Looking back, I see now that this experience changed me in ways I never expected. I've become more cautious, more aware of the things I might have missed. But I also became stronger, more determined to hold on to what's real. I can't control her choices, but I can control how I move forward. And I have. I'm rebuilding my life slowly, with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. I don't regret uncovering the truth, because honesty, no matter how brutal, is always better than living in a lie. And I know now that I'm capable of surviving even the deepest betrayals, as long as I stay true to myself and focus on what really matters.